swing. Right here on this sacred ground is where I learned to sing. Over yonder past the field is where the river flows. Through this smoky mountain town and down to where Lord knows. On the hill, 5:30, grab your fiddle, we can dance all night. Might find good old time, we know how to live this life. I've got Carolina in my bones, ragtop hill, old South Toe. I will always call this my home sweet home. Some say it's just countryside and city folks can't see wonders of a simple life, no other way for me. But sometimes I take the route out past the old smokestack. Every time I leave this place, the wind calls me right back. On the hill, 5:30, grab your fiddle, we can dance all night. Might find good old time, we know how to live this life. I've got Carolina in my bones, ragtop hill, old South Toe. I will always call this my home sweet home.
Well, good evening and welcome to the December 12th City Council meeting. We could have a roll taken, please.
Mayor Hartke,
Here.
Mayor Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember McClymons,
Here.
Councilmember Wong,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, City Clerk. Tonight, Pastor, or as I like to now call him, Director Victor Hardy is going to lead us in our invocation, as well as Councilmember McClymons will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. But if you'd please join me for a moment of silence. One of our mayors, Coy Payne, passed away at the beginning of this week. And if we would please stand and just take a moment of silence, and then I'll give you a nod to start our prayer, please. Pastor.
Let us prepare our hearts and minds for prayer. Silent night, holy night, all is calm and all is bright. Let us pray, dear Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for your love and your joy. Dear Father, we thank you for the gift of life that you've given to each and every one of us. And during this season, dear Father, we thank you for the moments of joy that we get to have. We thank you for this body, this leadership, and please let their judgment be firm and for all of us. Let those whom feel like they do not have a voice be able to speak loud and clear through this leadership. Dear Father, we thank you. We thank you for the gift of love, and we thank you for the gift that will shine through all eternity. And more than that, dear Father, we please bless those whom are hungry, whom are cold, whom are out in the streets. Dear Father, we pray that you lay your hands upon them so that they may find food and they may find shelter. They may find love and they may find joy and grace. Dear Father, during this time of the season, we wish upon those whom do not have to have at this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the reciting of our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Hardy. That was a bold lead out there. Thank you, Councilmember McClymans. Council, tonight we have a fairly long consent item as well as 2 action items at the end. In our consent tonight, we're also will be on the final on approving a trial period for shared mobility, scooters, et cetera, on our streets. We'll be approving a study for a multi-generational rec study. We are approving, on consent, with your approval, of course, on all of these, a strategic master plan for our parks that will carry us with the same depth as we looked at with our transportation system. This will also address girls softball and other types of concerns which have showed up at our recent budget survey, as well as earlier on Monday as well. We also have in here Alma School, the design part from Germain to Pecos on Alma School Road improvements. And in this here too, since Monday, number 6 and number 16 in our consent have been continued to January. Is there any questions or comments before we vote on the consent agenda?
Mayor?
Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, I want to thank staff for working with the applicants on several of those projects we spoke on Monday night and getting us a little more time to work with them. I certainly appreciate the applicants being flexible as well. So with that, Mayor, motion's in order?
Sure.
Yes, I move to approve the regular council meeting dated Thursday, December 12, 2019, items 1 through 62 with the addendums noted in regards to the extension of the other 2 items.
Okay. Second with Councilmember McClymans. Any other questions related to this, abstentions, et cetera? Councilmember Lopez.
One comment also were some of the board and commission appointees, since we have a few attendees in the audience, to take a look at our boards and commissions. We always have vacancies, so if you want to get involved in the city of Chandler, please volunteer your time and contribute to the city's growing and positive nature. So that's all I want to add.
All right. All right.
Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
I'd like to abstain from item number 10 about conflict of interest.
Okay. Item number 10, so noted. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Lopez? Motion carries unanimously with the exception of item number 10, which carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. Council, next on our agenda item is, we have 2 action items before us tonight. The first item, number 63, has to do with Dogtopia, an outdoor animal play area.
Mayor?
Councilmember Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor. City Attorney, just to confirm, due to I have a relative living in that area that's to be discussed tonight, by law, I believe you had indicated to me several times that I must recuse myself from voting. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, if you have a relative that has a conflict of interest, that conflict is imputed to you. So yes, you do have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. With that, Mayor, I'll be leaving the dais temporarily until this is discussed and debated, and then I will return.
Okay, so after we finish this, and you'll return, and come on, I thought you were going to repeat my statement today, so.
Mayor, I'm going to be watching you very carefully back in the room, okay?
We were talking earlier, and I said, if you must recuse, you must excuse, so. Councilmember Wong.
Just a question. So does Council Member Orlando really need to leave the seat?
Since it's an action item, he cannot participate engage in the conversation or the debate or comments, so. Normally, we don't recuse when it's
Mhm.
if it's a consent item, but if there's actually an action item where there is conversation and people approaching us, it's cleaner just to step down.
Okay,
For this one, he'll be back for our second action item.
I understand, but he doesn't need to leave. He can, he couldn't participate, but he can still sit in his seat, right?
It's cleaner just to step off the dais so it doesn't look like you're part, either in even facial expressions or anything else of support for either action, so,
Okay, understand. Thank you.
all right. So here's what we're going to do with this. We will have a presentation from our staff, and there will be opportunities to counsel for questions, anything that you would like. We'll invite those representing Dogtopia to make a presentation. And I don't know, there are some cards in favor of that too, okay? As well as we'll also take any positive comments of those who are speaking on behalf of Dogtopia. Okay? These are speaking, and these are just in favor or not? Okay. These are comments, which I'll read at that time. We will, the clerk will keep track of the amount of time that in the presentation and comments of the for Dogtopia after our staff has completed. We will log that time and then give, I've got a stack of cards for those who wish to speak against Dogtopia. We will give the parties present, the same amount of time, perhaps another minute or two longer up to that time, and then allow the Dogtopia folks to make some closing comments. So at that point, we will have the opportunity to debate that up here, and then we will vote. So we might proceed. Kevin Mayo.
Mayor, council members, I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce to you one of our newest city planners. And while she's been with us a little while, this is her first appearance before council this evening. So I'd like to introduce you to Stephanie Watney, the city planner here at the city of Chandler, who will be making the staff presentation this evening. Stephanie.
Thank you, Kevin. Right. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, item 63 is case number PLH 19-0021. It is a request for a use permit for an outdoor animal play area as an accessory use to an animal daycare for dogs with overnight boarding. The subject site is located within Suite 7 at the Shops at Chandler Heights, which is located at the northeast corner of Arizona Avenue and Chandler Heights Road. The subject site is surrounded by commercial uses to the west and to the south. To the north is the Basis School, and to the east is a single-family residential subdivision known as South Shore Village. The general plan designates this site as employment and the site is further designated by the South Shore Area Plan as commercial. It is zoned as Planned Area Development, or PAD, for C2 commercial uses. And while the zoning code allows for the indoor animal daycare by right, the outdoor component does require a use permit. It should be noted that this request was continued from the September 12th and the November 7th City Council hearing dates. The Dogtopia Suite is approximately 5,900 square feet. Again, it's located within the Shops at Chandler, which is an approximately 7.5-acre shopping center. The proposed outdoor animal play area is approximately 1,000 square feet and is at the rear of the inline shops and directly adjacent to and behind the existing Dogtopia Suite. As you can see, there are buffering and screening that is provided for on the site that is existing. There's landscaping strips as well as a perimeter masonry wall that bifurcates the commercial center from the residential, so to help mitigate the activity from the commercial shopping center. These photos identify the existing buffering and screening in place. As you can see, there are 2 drive aisles behind the proposed outdoor animal play area, as well as a landscape island with a trash enclosure and electrical facilities. And beyond that is the masonry perimeter wall. The photo on the left is the commercial shopping center facing east toward the residential neighborhood. And the photo on the right is the neighborhood facing the commercial shopping center. And you can see the approximate location of the outdoor animal play area highlighted in yellow. Here's a photo that illustrates where the outdoor animal play area is proposed to be located. Again, it is behind the existing Dogtopia tenant suite, and it is an approximately 1,000 square foot space that is proposed to be consisting of artificial turf as well as dog play facilities. And the applicant is proposing an approximately 8-foot tall vinyl opaque fence to enclose the area, as well as a shade sail on the southern portion of it. Now, with respect to public participation, there has been extensive public outreach by the applicant for this request. There was an initial neighborhood meeting that was held prior to the first Planning and Zoning Commission hearing date. At that first neighborhood meeting, there were 4 residents that attended from the South Shore Village neighborhood. Leading up to the initial P&Z hearing, there was a petition that was filed by the South Shore Village neighborhood in which approximately 43 households signed the petition, citing concerns regarding noise and property values, among others. At the initial P&Z hearing, the request was pulled for full action, and it was voted to be continued on to allow for additional time for the applicant to meet with the neighbors. And subsequent to that, there was an on-site meeting held at Dogtopia in mid-October, in which 5 residents of the abutting neighborhood attended, as well as staff and the applicant's acoustical engineer. There was a second formal neighborhood meeting that was held in late October, and approximately 11 attendees attended that. Leading up to the most recent P&Z hearing, there was an opposition petition that was filed by South Shore with approximately 85 individual households signing on. And their concerns were regarding noise pollution, equitable losses, health and sanitation concerns, and the potential for groundwater contamination. Planning staff is in receipt of 36 letters or emails of support and 18 letters or emails of opposition. This aerial identifies where the opposition is that signed on to the petition. It should be noted that this map does not identify where the supporters are. With respect to the proposed business operations, again, the outdoor animal play area is proposed to be approximately 1,000 square feet. The proposed occupancy is either 39 small breed dogs or 30 large breed dogs. And the number of dogs outside would really be determined based on the interior occupancy, attendance, and organization of the suites inside. There are 3 interior playrooms, and those are categorized by temperament and by size. And so, again, what occurs inside will really determine how many dogs are outdoors at any given time. The ratio of staff trainers to dogs is proposed to be 1 trainer per 20 dogs. And then for hours, I put this chart together because I wanted to show kind of where we started at and then where we're at now as a result of the applicant and their outreach with the neighbors. So in the applicant's original proposal, they were proposing 7 days per week for the outdoor animal play area. They're now proposing 6. They are not going to operate the outdoor animal play area on Sundays because that was very important to the neighbors in conversations with them. During the weekdays, the hours that were originally proposed were 3 hours in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. They've now cut those in half to an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. And then for weekends, the applicant was originally proposing 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. They're now only, they're limiting themselves now to 10 a.m. to noon with no outdoor play on Sundays. Planning staff has reviewed the proposal and is recommending approval upon a finding that this request is consistent with the general plan and that the use is an appropriate use within a commercial shopping center. Additionally, with the recommended conditions as well as mitigation techniques proposed by the applicant, such as the installation of sound mitigation panels and other operational adjustments, which I just discussed, we find that this will not be detrimental to the surrounding area. And we are recommending a 1-year time condition to reevaluate the compatibility of the use in a year's time. However, regardless of the 1-year time condition, the zoning code does provide a path for suspension or revocation of the use permit upon a finding by the planning administrator that there's a material non-compliance with conditions, which I'll get to in a minute, or that the operation of the use is in a manner that causes substantial detrimental impact on neighboring persons or property. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this case and recommended approval by a vote of 3-2, and 2 of the commissioners were absent. With respect to the recommended conditions, they are outlined in the memo that you have in front of you. Conditions 1 to 4 are really standard conditions. Number 5, I'm going to get to when we get to the other slide. And then number 6 is a 1-year time condition. 7 is reinforcing the limited time. 8 is that there shall be no outdoor animal play within the outdoor animal play area on Sunday. 9 is that no dogs shall be left unattended. And 10 is that the applicant shall install 3 sound absorption panels to the rear of the building and within the outdoor animal play area as approved by the Development Services Department. And conditions 7 through 10 were proposed by the applicant after receiving input from the neighbors. Since the writing of the staff memo, the applicant has proposed and staff recommends 3 additional conditions and a modification to condition 5. So 5 is that a direct contact phone number for the owner shall be provided rather than the manager, so it's cutting out the middle person, as well as 3 new conditions, which are memorialized in an addendum memo that you should have in front of you and that the applicant will go into further. With that, again, staff is recommending approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions for our staff? Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question about the sound. Who decides what that is and how, and is that used typically for this? I noticed that this looks like it's kind of in a corner, so it almost looks like there's an opportunity for a sound to come out of that corner. It's kind of, so who decided about that and what is it?
Through the mayor, vice mayor, the applicant's acoustical engineer is here, so he would be able to talk a little bit more about the sound attenuation panels. Per the report that was submitted and in conversations, though, it's our understanding that with the 3 sound attenuation panels that are shown on this, I guess, conceptual rendering on your screen, that the decibel levels would be decreased by approximately 3. And so we would work with the applicant on kind of the aesthetics of that and ensuring that it does what it's supposed to do.
Okay. So I had one question that was really brought up in the presentation. There was a mention and concern of contaminating groundwater. Are you prepared, or I see John Knutson in the back, can someone speak to us about that concern? And where is that a concern for us as a city?
Mayor, thank you. I believe that John Knudsen does have someone or is going to speak to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Groundwater contamination in a situation like this where you would have potential wash down from a slab or something like that really is not of concern to us, considering our groundwater wells are probably in excess of 600 feet below grade. So very, very great distance, great depth to the groundwater that we use here at Chandler. We also do not have any groundwater wells anywhere close to this facility. So any thought or concern about groundwater contamination, I think, is probably overstated.
And in terms of going down, washing down on a rain, I think that was a mention I'd heard from there too, but going into our sewer systems that's not an issue for us?
No, if the washdown water did come to our sewer facilities, our wastewater facilities, that's exactly what they're designed for, is waste. So human waste, animal waste, our plants, it wouldn't concern our plants at all. We have capacity and plenty of ability to treat.
Okay. Council, any additional questions before we invite the applicant to come up?
Mayor?
Councilmember Stewart.
I'd be interested to know the reasons, whether reasons given by planning and zoning are the 2 no votes.
Are we aware of the planning and zoning? It was a 3-2 vote with 2 people absent. Are we aware of or can you share the reasons for the 2 noes?
Through the Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, I apologize, but I don't recollect exactly why they voted no.
Thank you.
Okay. No additional questions. If the applicant would like to come forward. And at this point is when we would start our timer.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I don't think we'll time Q&As if we have questions, but purely presentation on both sides. So,
Mayor, just a matter of clarification. Those who wish to speak in support, should they speak in support of this at the termination of my presentation?
so what we'll do, yes. So we'll allow you to speak. We might shut off the timer for Q&A, and then I'll both read comments of those for and against at the appropriate time. If they might just list the name and say for, or they might have a comment, and as well as take the speakers. We will give each speaker up to 3 minutes, I suppose.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Here on behalf of Dogtopia, this is a site, and while it looks undeveloped today, I want you to remember, if you can, back when this was originally developed pre-recession around 2007 or so. And this building and this shopping center, with best intentions, sat vacant and half-built, probably not even half-built, under construction through a recession, and it wasn't completed around 2015 or 16. What's interesting here, though, is you have a very large charter school in the shopping center. That's an unusual pattern for shopping centers. So the fact that they had to fill much of this commercial space with a charter school illustrates how difficult it is for commercial shopping centers to thrive today in an online economy where you can choose free shipping and it can arrive at your house the next day. And so when you have shopping centers that really struggle to compete, I think this one's performed well. It's important that they have tenants that can succeed. And where you used to have specialty retail stores in the past, most of your tenants in shopping centers today are service-oriented tenants or restaurants, because those are sort of capable of surviving an online economy that a retail store might not as well. And so this Dogtopia provides a service, and as part of that service, they both have indoor play and they desire to have outdoor play. And when they started and opened this, they always had an intention to have an outdoor component, but frankly, the architect handling this wasn't aware of how long that process would take, and Dogtopia, with leases signed and commitments made, opened the store with the expectation that they would be able to complete this process. And so that's why it's staggered from the time they opened in August to where they are at today. As part of the lease and the obligation of working with the landlord, they are required to put it on the back of the store. And so this is the location that they propose to do it. It's a landscape area in the back. without having to do major construction to the site work. The idea is to enclose and fence this outdoor landscape area. What you'll see from this area here is how it connects to the building. The reason why it connects to the building is because there are 3 exterior doors that lead directly out to this play area. Those 3 exterior doors are pet rooms. And so instead of trotting your pets out the front door and around the building to the back, they're able to go directly from their playroom to this enclosed area. This area is about 1,000 square feet. This is an image of what we expect it will look like once we install the turf and the vinyl fencing. The vinyl fencing we propose is 8 feet tall. Here's a location of it relative to the neighborhood behind you. And as Stephanie mentioned, there's 2 drive aisles, another landscape island, some trash areas, some electrical boxes, a landscape track beyond the wall, and then a public street, and then the residences nearby. This is the idea of how it look as far as a cross section of the wall. The point of that is to create an enclosure that has some noise abatement, a subbase where water and pet waste can percolate into the ground, with a turf and a cleaning protocol to address items such as odor or sanitation. Here's an image looking east towards the neighborhood. And one thing that we learned when I wasn't involved, I've been involved for just barely over a few weeks, but when they started this process back in July, they modeled what a noise study would look like. That was done in an office with a computer, just applying some scientific information. And as they learned from the first P&Z, that's really not sufficient to adequately understand what the noise actually will be. So as a result, the noise engineer conducted an on-site study. And so what you see here is these boards. These boards are intended to face the closest house, which is Mr. Kyle Skipworth. They weren't intended to measure from any other property but his particular property. And short of building a full-scale model, this was probably the best you could do with the time constraints they had. But as they conducted that study, they put the speaker behind, and they ran noise at 103 decibels continually. So a dog might bark, or a dog might bark, or a dog might bark. That's an instant or a moment. What they did is ran it for a significant time continually. So that noise just ran. It is not representative of how it actually will be, but it was a good idea to judge. And they measured, before they did that noise measurement, the ambient conditions. They measured happened train that came by. They noticed the base of school nearby and even vehicles. And all those were the baseline measurements, so to speak. And what's important to understand here is you have some ambient conditions measured at 47, all the way up to base of school that can get up as high as 62 at different points. And as they played that, they went across the wall to the residential neighborhood and measured it there, and measured it in front of the house, and measured it in the backyard. And what they learned and discovered is what the noise decibels created by this sound study are actually less than what the ambient conditions can be. Because once you get in the backyard, once you have all those trees and significant structures in between, it affects the noise. It dampens it. And noise can only carry so far. And then they went to Scottsdale and conducted a 24-hour study period to also make sure that this modeling was reflective of actual conditions, and found out that if you were to add up all the barking noises, it would equal to less than 1 minute in a whole hour time. It is very, very insignificant what would be perceptible. So this was the conclusion of the noise study. Will you hear an occasional bark? Probably. But is it going to rise to a level where it is a nuisance? No. And it is not expected to be any louder than the normal sounds of living next to a train track or overflight flights or behind a commercial shopping center. There is a protocol, though, and I think these are things that are important to understand. All employees are trained on how to reduce barking. That requires outdoor constant supervision. Dogs are not left unattended outside. This is modeled after a behavior study, and it looks at ways to reduce and redirect. So you first, if there's a persistent barking dog or a dog that barks, you try to reduce that stimulus. You try to redirect with certain exercises. If it still continues, you can remove them to the inside. And more importantly, there's an educational element, helping the pet owners understand your dog needs to receive some education in order to continue attending our facility. So this is a protocol that's been in place and one that is continually being refined. There are other locations that have pet care facilities. Some might be vet centers, some might be boarding centers, some might be dog daycare places like ours. But at least some of these are some representative examples in Chandler and other places nearby where they're close to residential areas. The reason why I bring this up is just to show that it's not unusual to have a facility like this in proximity to residential neighborhoods. I only looked at Southeast Valley locations, so I didn't look at Phoenix. I looked at Tempe, Ahwatukee, Mesa, Gilbert, Queen Creek. And there's many, many pet care facilities of all different types. So I only pulled the ones that have outdoor areas next to residential homes. And just this little plot map shows there's about 18 or so that are next to residential properties that are in close proximity like this. So how do these things exist all these times, and why do they continue to locate near them? Well, frankly, these belong in commercial areas, and commercial areas almost always are next to residential neighborhoods. That's because they serve a residential service and need. So it's not unusual to be next to a residential neighborhood and most likely behind a shopping center. There are certain policies and procedures in place that we've implemented over a number of locations across the states. And there's a behaviorist that's helped guide them through that policy. There's playrooms inside with remote webcams. So you at your home or office can log in and watch your pet play. There's extensive modules that employees go through, management goes through to learn and continually train and improve. And there's an intense sanitation protocol. Now, as part of this element here, this is a use permit test. And the use permit test has certain factors that you should consider in evaluating whether this is legally appropriate. And let me run through these things that are in your zoning ordinance. First part, it says, is it consistent with the general plan? Well, this is a commercial use in a commercial area that is indeed recognized as commercial on the general plan, the kind of place that you'd expect to see this. Number two, it looks at ingress, egress, and fire protection. Is this use permit going to affect those kind of things? The fact of the matter is because it's located behind the center rather than in front, it's actually more appropriately located for ingress and egress, or even fire protection than if it had been in the front. Number three, is it going to affect off-street parking and loading? No, there's sufficient in the shopping center. There is no particular direct access from the rear. Number four, zero impact on public services. That has already proven itself to be true. Screening and buffering. There is an 8-foot tall fence. It is screened at some points. There'll be some sunshade covers and noise panels that will be installed within the enclosure. Our signage is compliant. There is no exterior lighting that's going to be affected by this. This is all in the daytime. It doesn't address or change the retention and landscaping. And more importantly, the building itself still conforms to design standards versus by being in the back of the center. At the end of the day, I think it's important to look at what is compatible. I know there might be a difference of opinion between us and the neighbors about compatibility, but I guess I have to focus on what is the actual factual evidence of the case. It does comply with all your codes, ordinances, and regulations. It complies with your general plan. It is located in a commercial area exactly for these types of use. Your ordinance allows this use through a use permit provision. That purpose of the use permit provision is to make sure that there is conditions prescribed to this, so it can ensure compatibility and also be revoked if it violates those things. You couldn't get that if this was a use approved and permitted by right. The use permit is actually a very useful tool here. That is the enforcement mechanism. The ambient conditions are indeed louder, as shown by the noise study, than what we would generate. Staff believes it's compatible. Staff recommends approval. While there's a number of folks who have been opposed, there are also a number of folks who are in support. And I think it's unique that they've prescribed a one-year review, and it's prudent and wise because, frankly, it's not just come back 1 year, it's reapply it 1 year. That means if we haven't done our job, if we have failed, if we have proven the neighbors correct, this use will not survive after 1 year. My imagine would be based on the reapplication process. And then lastly, it's important to highlight a conditional use permit is only conditional, whereas a zoning right runs with the land. You can't undo vested zoning. A use permit can be revoked. It can be revoked by not observing the stipulations of approval, by being materially non-compliant, and frankly, while we have a 1 year review, it could be revoked before that 1 year review. And so I hope that never happens. I believe the permits to be good operators and will do so, but certainly that's why this use permit is an incredibly useful tool. That is the enforcement mechanism and the hammer, both from the neighbor side and the city side as well. As it came to Planning Commission, and while I've only been involved fairly recently, we proposed some stipulations in recognizing the feedback from the neighbors. I don't think I've been able to change any of their minds, but I do hope you'll understand that these 4 conditions we've done have been in direct response to their concern. So for example, we've offered to reduce our times to only 1.5 hours in the morning at mid-morning, 9 to 10:30, and in the afternoon, 3:30 to 5 p.m. I don't think those are unreasonable times. I don't think the request for 1.5 hours in the morning afternoon is unreasonable either. And we've also agreed to not have any hours on Sunday and only 2 hours on a Saturday. I'm not aware of other pet care facilities that have as great restrictions on hours of use as this one here. And this is what we have proposed in response to those concerns. We've also agreed that there shall not be no outdoor play on Sundays. There'll never be a dog left unattended. There always will be a supervisor out there. And we'll install three new sound absorption panels on the building itself. So that way as sound travels, it absorbs it from the building rather than reflects and bounces off. And these are the idea of the panels that exist today. I know that you're going to have a number of comments, both in support and in against, and I'd love a chance to have maybe a minute and a half or so on the backside so I can address any comments that were raised, and I'll probably share some additional stipulations as Stephanie highlighted in her presentation.
So if we could potentially pause our clock. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez.
So in the off chance that, like you said, it's a one-year permit to come back and reapply, and I don't know if this is for the city attorney or the planners, but if the permit is revoked and they come back and say this isn't working out, it is really a disturbance. Do you revert the land back to original? What happens then? Or you just don't do outside play? If you lose the permit, is there any requirements to, again, restore it to original plan?
That's an excellent question. To go through a revocation process, it's the same process to grant this. So it'd have to come back to you. At that point, as part of revocation, you could add a condition that requires the outdoor landscape area to be returned to its prior condition, such as removal of the wall, reinstallation of the landscape, removal of the turf. Was that?
So when we say, okay, we're removing it and these are the stipulations as part of the removal, is that what we're saying?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Lopez, the use permits to allow the outdoor play area, and through that process, you could have them remove the improvements that allow for that outdoor play area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Vice Mayor, then Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So on behalf of the city, I guess our code enforcement folks would deal with this, or if there are complaints, is it how do we gather information if there is information to be gathered?
Yeah. So through the mayor, vice mayor, that would be handled either depending on the type of complaint. If it's noise, it would go to police. If it's other things, it could go to codes, or it could be handled through our planning department as part of their overall planning and zoning item. So it just depends on which type of complaint it is, but it's definitely coordinated across the city.
Okay, so if there is a report to the police, I mean, sometimes an officer doesn't take a report. How is all that going to get back to our planning folks?
Yeah. So, but those calls are logged, so we know when they're responding for different types of calls on those. So, but we can definitely take particular attention to this case. And
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
I have a suspicion we may get a report if something bad happens. I'm sure we'll know about it if something were to come down the road. I've got a question about the smell or the odor attenuation plans. How will that be handled? Will there be a spray down daily or weekly, and how will that run off? That'll go into the sewer. I was on Google Maps while we were talking, or while you were presenting, looking at the way it's all laid out too. It looks like there's some sewer lines there. Can you go into that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I'll do my best. As a pet makes waste, if it's a solid waste, it's picked up instantly and immediately. Assuming this is an outdoor use that's approved and that occurs, that's picked up right away, just the same way it's done on the inside. There's a bioenzymatic spray. Bioenzymatic means it's an actual organic agent that breaks down whatever residual may be there. And so that is not it is a safe cleaning solution. It's not hazardous. It's a natural thing. And the way it works, it's the bioenzymatic survives by sort of eating or consuming or digesting whatever remnant waste may make. It's a spray foam with a little bit of a hose with a foam nozzle on the end, so it's washed off. That's occurred after outdoor play, and then there's a thorough cleaning at the end of the day. So there's not an occasion where you would have waste that survives longer than that component of outdoor play.
In the urine, is that going to be sprayed?
It's part of the after.
Oh, the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd pick up what you can see visibly, but after that hour and a half block window, they would do a cleanup at that moment.
Thank you.
All right, no additional questions. Thank you. We could start our time again. I'm going to read the comment cards that are in support of this and any comments. Then I'm going to invite the speakers in the order that were presented to me. I will ask the speakers, if you've got something new to say, please say that. Otherwise, just kind of get to the gist. We don't need a repeat of why you're in favor of this if it's the exact same. So I'd like to try to hasten this process, and I'll say the same thing to those who have comments. I'll read all the comments to those who are opposed, and also for the same, if you could, I think you've coordinated your comments to my best understanding, that you're giving us new material rather than everyone saying the exact same thing. So comments in support. Sarah Hansen from Scottsdale is in support. I have Andy Knight from Maricopa. I have Lisa Martinez from Chandler. She writes, I love Dogtopia. Dogs need outside air. Comment from Teresa McKibbins from Chandler, writes full support. Comment from Selena Slider from, no city given, in support of Dogtopia. Comment from Al Serpa from Gilbert. We are fully in support of Dogtopia and their owners. Comment from Beverly Snyder, no city given. Dogtopia is an excellent business to have in Chandler. We should support local business. I'm assuming that means she's in Chandler. Comments from Kirk Marshall from Scottsdale, support. Comments from Tanya Plank from Chandler/Sun Lakes. Please allow Dogtopia to open an outdoor play area so my dog can get much needed exercise, sun, and outside air. Thank you. Comment from Jim Louder from Scottsdale, full support. Comment from Daniel Chetham, 85257. As a dog owner, I would like to have a reputable dog sitting and boarding with outside area. Comment from Lynn Serpa from Gilbert. The dog should be able to get outside for short periods of time while being boarded. Comments from Patino from Phoenix in support of Dogtopia. I know I've also received probably at least 10, including the ones included in our packet from Chandler business owners in support. Now, if I could ask our speakers to come up, and again, please be as brief as possible. You have up to 3 minutes, but it doesn't mean that you need to use it. If I could invite Leonard Brebson to come up, if you would come up to the dais, please state your name and address for the record.
Leonard Brabson, 3451 East Links Place, Chandler, 85249. Thank you for allowing me to have this time, and I think a lot of great points have already been made, so I would just like to say in support of this motion, I see a local business whose part of their business plan was to have this outdoor play area, work hard to work with their neighbors, that got there was no reciprocity there. It was an all or nothing reaction. I was here for the Planning Commission. The primary thing is noise, which I completely appreciate. However, there was no allowance for working back and forth. It was either we're not going to have it or that's it. So I see Dogtopia, a local business, a small business as myself, try to work with the noise, having the engineer come out and make a lot of concessions. So I just want to say I see a small business that's trying to be a good neighbor. I just want to support them and say that I think they're doing the right thing, and I hope that the council will allow them to allow their business to run as planned. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Natalie Glennon. If you would please come up and state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Natalie Glennon. My address is 1204 East Prescott Place, Chandler, 85249. I am a 32-year resident of Chandler, and I'm also a very loyal consumer. I shop at Bash's'. They're one of the largest employers we have in our state and started here in Chandler. I also eat at Serrano's, one of the Mexican food restaurants that started here in Chandler. So I am very loyal to the Chandler businesses because it's what's contributed to make our city better. And I have been driving for many years to Gilbert to have facilities for my dogs, both boarding and daycare. And I was very excited to try a new place that was around the corner from my home, which is Dogtopia. I've been very pleased with their service, their cleanliness, and also I love that they're trying to do the right thing as with the neighbors around them. So I am for them. As far as the noise pollution that's been discussed, I just want you to know, I feel like they're very cognizant to the noise, even when I'm inside with the dogs inside the room, and I think they will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sally Putnam. If you would also come to the dais and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Sally Putnam, 1912 West Thompson Way, Chandler, Arizona 85286. I'm here today as a Chandler resident, an active community involved individual, and also a voter. And I'm here in support of Dogtopia. The owners of Dogtopia are not the money-grabbing, dishonest people that they have been inferred to in other meetings. They're a family that has invested their life savings into a business. They want to be good neighbors and are making concessions at their own cost to live up to their commitments and to be respectful of the neighborhood. This is the type of business owner we want in Chandler, people with commitment to a community, to a good business acumen, and a high level of morality. They're not looking for a handout or an unfair advantage, but rather the same opportunity other Chandler doggy daycare centers have with their housing neighbors. Conveniently left out of some previous meetings was a similar situation in a neighboring community about a year ago. The neighborhood opposed an outdoor facility. It was approved, and when they were recently asked how it was going, the neighbors said they thought the business was going under, it was going out of business. And actually the opposite is true. They're thriving. The dogs are playing, the owners are making money, and the neighbors have not been complaining at all about the noise. This isn't a we win, you lose environment. This isn't even a popularity contest. This is an opportunity to let Dogtopia earn the confidence of the neighborhood to prove that they are in fact good neighbors. I trust that you will give them that opportunity.
Thank you. Our last speaker in support of this item is Susan Perlman. Susan, again, if you would come and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Susan Perlman. I am the co-owner of Dogtopia of South Chandler, but I'm actually reading a letter on behalf of a resident and the HOA president that resides behind the Dogtopia of Gilbert. My address is 3303 East Indigo Street, Gilbert, Arizona 85298. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the closest neighbor to Dogtopia in Gilbert. I am also the president of our HOA. We did not support Dogtopia in Gilbert because of noise concerns. The town did its best to address them, and we still oppose the permit. Although it seems Dogtopia has not hit its full stride, I must admit that the noise is minimal. My fear that my dogs would engage in a bark fest have not come to fruition. I had only a couple people mention noise, and it was referred to as a non-issue. Basically, I hear more from cars coming across Williamsfield than I do Dogtopia. Also, there has been zero issue in regards to odor. So far, so good. I would not expect you to experience any issues. Jim Torgeson, Sign King of Arizona, Mesa Sign Shop, 756 West Main Street, Mesa, Arizona, 85201. That's his business address, I assume.
Okay, thank you. That is all we have right now in support. And again, we'll give the applicant an opportunity to, let's say, 90 seconds at the end. What is our time, please?
Mayor, it's 20 minutes and 18 seconds.
20 minutes and 18 seconds. All right. We have a number of comment cards who are opposing this, and I'll read through these quickly as I did with them, as well as I think I have, looks like 5 speaker cards to also address us. I apologize in advance. Some of these names are going to be difficult on my tongue with not being able to meet you or hear you pronounce your name. So I just apologize in advance if I misspell your name. And if we could start right now. Kiran Dupadali is opposed. Teresa Walker as a homeowner, and by the way, Kiran is a Chandler resident. Teresa Walker, no address given, but as a homeowner with the potential of 39 dogs to be outside barking, urinating, and defecating in my backyard is absurd. Absurd that this is even being considered. I'm a dog owner, love dogs, and want them to be cared for in the best possible way, but homeowners should be considered before a business that will be a nuisance for an entire neighborhood. Kathy Skipworth, no address given, but obviously a Chandler resident, I'm assuming. You're not taking what is the best interest of the community seriously. You have a petition with 111 homes that do not want the outside play area. The community needs to decide that, not you, the council. It will cause urine and feces smell and a noise nuisance. She is opposed. Next owner opposed is Sudhar Kasinathan, also from Chandler. Next opposed is Hariharan Venkatachalapathy. He writes, I am opposed to the play area in the front. I am opposed to having the play area in the front. Next opposed is Brian Stirrod. I am not in favor of an outdoor dog area in my neighborhood, and Brian lives in Chandler. And the last card is from Venkat Kanagani, and he is opposed. I was given these in a specific order, and we'll certainly honor that. Our first speaker from speaker card is Mark Sepulveda. Mark, if you'll please come up and state your name and address for the record. I'm going to keep the 3 minutes on there because that kind of gauges there, but you don't want to run out of time for your last. So,
Mark Sepulveda, 3302 West Ross, Chandler, Arizona, 85226. I'm going to hit this from a little bit different angle. I think we live in a representative form of government. I think we've got an overwhelming opposition from the neighbors, those who will be most effective. So I've lived here for well over 30 years, was born here, I work here, started several businesses here, chose to raise my son here. Only time I've left this city has been for military service and for times of war. I've seen it grow from a small town to quite a healthy-sized city. Unfortunately, this growth is cause for disappointment at times. I'm not averse to growth, but it does appear that it's corrupted the city. At times, our politicians seem to forget that their loyalty is to their citizens rather than their political donors. The citizens of South Shore Village community have adamantly opposed the use permit for Dogtopia. They painfully exercised their rights and gathered approximately 150 signatures. 85 of 138 homes, over 60% in the immediate vicinity of the project, oppose this application. This is an overwhelming response from Chandler citizens who will be impacted by this use. I'm going to take a pause and just, that's evident in even the opposition. I don't recall too many, in the support. I don't recall too many in the opposition that didn't live in Chandler. It's easy to support something that's not going to affect you. Despite this, these citizens have been marginalized almost every step of the way. Staff and city responses to their questions have been slow and at times incomplete. There appears to be an unfair process at P&Z where potential conflict of interest has been ignored. On this same body, 2 members did not even show up for the vote. Those same 2 members happen to be running for Chandler City Council. They abdicated their responsibilities and squirmed out being put on public record. They'll soon ask for Chandler citizens' votes. As a resident, I think it's important to get something else on record. With the exception of Councilmember Orlando, who's recused himself, please raise your hands if you've taken political contributions from the zoning attorney, the applicant's zoning attorney, Adam Baugh, or his firm.
We're here to listen to you, please.
Okay. Well, I do have those of note. Mr. Hartke, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Rowe, and Mr. Lopez have taken donations from the applicant's attorney. In a meeting with residents, Renee Lopez stated that perception is reality. It is my perception that while Chandler may not be for sale, it could be at bid. I would ask you consider the voice of the taxpayers and citizens who you work for before your vote this evening. Consider their tax dollars that pay for your salaries over the donations that pay for your campaigns. The citizens and property owners who will be affected by this use have spoken and demonstrated their opposition to this project. I hope you will break my perception and demonstrate that you realize who you do work for. Vote against this use permit as your constituents have explicitly encouraged you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sepulveda. Our next speaker is Anthony Bustos. If you please come and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Anthony Bustos, 231 East San Carlos Way, 8785249, sorry. So I received a letter from the applicant to go and visit the operation. So I exercised that right to go and take a look at that operation. And what I found was actually what many folks on the side talked about. It's a thriving business. I visited on December 9th, 4:30 p.m. This was the 103rd day of operation. They had about 35 dogs, which is about 1/3 the capacity of the business. We were shown and observed 3 full playrooms that constitute 3,760 square feet, which means that at full capacity, you're looking at 32 square foot per dog. At that day, December 9th, you're talking about 104 square foot per dog. So I walked away with the impression that this is a vibrant business. This business is going to do very well. They had constant traffic coming in for their pets in and out. I have no worries that the business of Doctopia is not going to make money, folks. My concern, my wife's concern, is the noise. And this is something that I saw with my own eyes and heard with my own ears, that dogs do bark. And the dogs did bark, consistent with dog play. Even though the personnel and the staff did their best to break up the dogs and such, they're dogs. They can't control their barking. And they do bark when they're at play. My concern was raised with Susan Perlman at that point because I wanted to have the discussion with her. And she's trying to do the best that she could to answer the question about how do you intend to control this, which there isn't a very good answer for this because it's the one variable that no sound study, that none of us can predict. And there is no dog on God's green earth that I know that's got a volume button on it. So it's definitely a variable input. I also decided to try to be a little more objective. So I went to another local business and saw that what outdoor play sounds like, and I got that and I can send that to you. Most importantly, before I run out of time, this doesn't even fit Chandler's code 35-2100, which is 500 feet from the nearest residence. At the end of this proposal, this proposed enclosure, which is a kennel, you're talking about 77 feet. I hope this piece of paper here that you all are objective, because according to this piece of paper, you guys consider this case closed and have already gone through the 10-step process to get to a case closed, all green status. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. Our next speaker is Greg Pleasant. Greg, if you'd please come and state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yeah, my name is Greg Pleasant. I live at 249 East Powell Way, 85249. I had the occasion of visiting with two of you esteemed members at Chandler City Council prior to this meeting. And one meeting was held with a city councilman, and he joined me and one other member of my community in a discussion about the pros and cons of a dog park, or dog run. I guess that's how I phrase it, dog run. We had a good discussion back and forth, but at the end of the discussion, what I remember most about it is that the city councilman begged us not, or asked us not to be disappointed if we lost, which is what I took away from that meeting. I also met with the mayor and two other individuals from our subdivision, and two things happened before I even had a chance to speak, or anybody from our group had a chance to speak. Number one, we were told it's 45 minutes and then mayor's out of here, which is okay. 45 minutes is longer than I'm getting right now. But the other thing he said was, you know, this proposal is probably going to be approved. Okay, now you guys can start talking now. What do you want to say? And believe me, I had two inputs that told me before our information was even imparted to these two individuals that this deal is a done deal. And if you folks would have called me earlier, I would have told you you didn't need to show up because you're in. Thank you.
I'm going to take a point of personal preference since there was a use of my words. I was specifically asked what I thought of the project and where I thought it was going, and I responded to that question, so thank you. Our next speaker card is Heather Shipworth. If you would please come and state your name and address for the record.
Heather Skipworth.
I'm sorry.
230 East San Carlos Way. I would like to first address council about a process that may have allowed donations, personal agendas, conflicts of interest, and egos get in the way of a fair process. This applicant, a corporate franchise, lacked due diligence in choosing a suitable location that guaranteed an exterior play area. The code states that it requires compatibility and in the best interest of the community. And we feel as residents that you have completely disregarded our opinion on what our best interest is. And our opposition petition of 146 individual signatures in our neighborhood saying that this is probably not a good idea. The applicant keeps claiming that they are good neighbors, yet we have received letters from neighbors, from homeowners that are unfortunately already living next to Dogtopias across the country, and they have nothing but negative experiences. Not to mention, a majority of their letters of support are coming from people who already use the business. They're already customers, whether they have it or not, whether they have an exterior play area or not, they're using the business. It's also funny how they don't live in our community, and on their letters, they are so readily available to discuss what our noise level is like in our neighborhood. For most of us, this is our first experience with our local government, and I am frustrated, I am ashamed, and I am embarrassed about this entire process and those involved, especially planning and zoning. And to finish up, there are two questions, even though you're probably not going to answer them for me. The first one is it okay to lie on or in an application process? And number two, is it okay to submit inaccurate and fraudulent information within this process? That is all, if you don't have anything, if you don't have an answer for me.
Thank you.
Okay, on the record, I'm willing to answer.
How much time do we have left on this?
Yeah, we're at 12 minutes and 35 seconds, so.
All right. Our last speaker is Kyle Skipworth. Please again state your name and address for the record.
Kyle Skipworth, 230 East San Carlos Way. I was born to a blue-collar family. They taught me my core values. They taught me what right and wrong was, how to do the right thing, how to protect and provide for my family, how to defend my freedom, my rights, the process, and to help a neighbor in need. This process is ultimately about residential rights, a fair and due process, and those who are fighting for those rights. Myself and my community have been treated as secondhand citizens in this process. The burden of proof has continually and unduly fallen on the neighborhood time and time again. Risk is continually being asked to be placed on the community. Blatant errors, lies, misleading information was pointed out, and the response I was given was, in quotes from members of the city, "It's not a big deal. It's not a sticking point. That's just a minor detail." And those are exact quotes that I've received from not necessarily members of this council, but city officials. So I guess lies and fraud aren't a big deal, no matter how big or how small. The planning and zoning is just a recommending body. That's something that I've also continually been reminded of, which is very frustrating, because the atrocity that happened in the planning and zoning meeting is a direct reflex, unfortunately, on this council, because this council appoints those members. Maybe not this council specifically, but council. This process, as we all know, was unethical and unfair to residents. Our opinion on our own community and what we deem best for our community continually falls on deaf ears. Yet a corporation and those who live outside the community can dictate or opine what we should be subjected to. They've never raised a family in South Shore Village. They've never had a loved one pass away in South Shore Village. They've never got to watch their child take their first steps in South Shore Village. Yet they're so readily available to tell us what we should be subjected to and how we should live our lives. That's our decision. That's our decision for our rights and our property. I've even had a council member on this very council tell me if this was his home, he would be making a big deal about it too. So then why are we continually being treated like it doesn't matter? Less than 5 minutes into another meeting last week with a member of council, we were told, "I suspect this has a pretty good chance of passing." But how can that be? It was less than 5 minutes into our conversation. You hadn't been presented an official packet yet. You hadn't legally sat down in an official body to discuss this. So how can you already have an assumption or opinion that this has got a pretty good chance of passing before you ever can legally get together and discuss this issue? And that was before the residents ever had a chance to state their opinion. So, multiple members of this very council were able to meet the applicant on site, but only one sitting here offered to meet us in our community. I guess we weren't worthy of a 125-foot walk to come visit our neighborhood when it is quiet. But instead, the time chosen was, yeah, when recess is out, it can be a little loud at times, but there's quite a bit where it is peaceful, incredibly peaceful. By continuing to treat us differently than the applicant, the lens of objectivity and fairness becomes more and more shadowy. I have the emails, conversations, recordings, and data that proves this perception and bias. Even for tonight's meeting, an attempt was made to put time constraints on the community, a request that just prior to the start of this meeting was changed, which I appreciate. Prior, this could have easily been argued as an attempt to suppress our First and 14th Amendment rights afforded to us by the Constitution. In closing, this case will set the precedent that the city of Chandler is likely to take the opinion of an applicant or possibly the money over the community, that it is okay to lie in residence through the process. It is okay to submit inaccurate or fraudulent information during the process for the basis of an opinion-based judgment should be made. The need to never disclose personal or financial conflicts of interest as an appointed official of Chandler. And lastly, I really want to point out something that has struck with me and epitomizes this process. I was called by a member of the city who sits behind this very bench. That phone call included something that is quite troubling to me. It was on my own personal time, on my own personal cell phone. I was reminded that an individual sits on the top of the organizational chart. I have a copy of that organizational chart with me here today. And if I may, the projector, hopefully if I can find it, right here. If we could get that projector up to work. Here's a copy of the city organizational chart. There's no individual that sits on the top of it. It's the residents. So we would like to be treated like we are at the top, not non-existent. We would like our rights, our quality of life to be determined by those who are emotionally and equitably invested in the community, and that our best interests and exactly what our municipal code states is necessary for approval. Now that is the end of my speech. However, from a Q&A standpoint, I have mountains of data that can answer any questions, rebuttal many of the arguments of the applicant. And just to state this, even though through the due diligence of this process there have been flaws found that we don't think the applicant as people are flawed. And we have unequivocally said from the beginning, we wish them all the success in the world. We have and continue to do that. However, when the process itself, a proper process produces proper results, and a flawed process produces flawed results. We still wish them the best of success. We have unequivocally said that over and over and again, and that is documented in conversations, emails as well. So this is not a personal crusade against the individuals. This is a crusade against the process and ultimately who decides the property rights. Is it those who sit on the dais, or is it those who live in the neighborhood? And with that being said, I'll finish my speech, but like I said, I have any information for any questions regarding noise. We have countless letters. We have countless videos that show incessant barking. Regarding even the letter of the Gilbert location, the reason they don't hear it is because it's on the completely adjacent side of the building, completely shielded by a 30-foot block structure of a wall and a building. Of course they're not going to hear it. One person in the town of Gilbert complained, and they completely changed the logistical location of that to completely cut it off from all noise. So once again, it's kind of a skewed fact of course you don't hear it, because it's on the exact opposite side of the building. So of course, anything that you have a question for, I probably have an answer for. And if I don't, I'm sorry that I didn't do enough due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skipworth. All right.
No questions? Okay.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to invite the applicant for any final comments, and then we will converse.
Mayor and members of the council, as I look at the petition that was signed, there's 4 things that stand out to me. 1, groundwater contamination, which has been disproven by your staff. 2, noise pollution, which has been disproven by the noise study. 3, health and sanitation concerns, which are addressed by the cleaning protocols. And 4, as alleged, some type of loss in market value without any evidence to correlate that. When I think about this process here, I think about what was the purpose of a use permit provision listed in your zoning code. You have use permits for outdoor patios. You have use permits for liquor licenses. You have other types of use permits depending on different types of uses that sometimes are a question about compatibility. Because this isn't a use permitted by right, strategically and intentionally, it's a use that has conditions which allow this council and staff to regulate, to enforce, and possibly revoke. As I think about the feedback from the neighbors, I'll admit that Kyle has been a remarkable advocate for his community. I've met with him 2 times, and I know he's done significant outreach on behalf of his neighbors. And because of that outreach, we've offered new conditions at the Planning and Zoning Commission that I don't think would have occurred but for their involvement in the process. The restriction on the hours were significant. There was 4 that were added at the time. And because of their continued involvement, they gave us 11 new stipulations to consider, 4 of which we've been able to implement, as you saw previously, in the staff's recommendation as well. So as a result of that outreach, while I know we haven't been able to change any minds, and perhaps we never will, because of their involvement in this process, they've been able to secure 8 things that make this better compatible today than it was when it started. As I mentioned previously, I'm not aware of another pet care facility with an outdoor use that has the type of restrictions that we are imposing ourselves in response to those neighbors' concerns. I will say that that is why this can be compatible. And that's why it can be in the best interest of the community, because of those additional regulatory stipulations. This is he mentions that the neighbors bear the risk. Frankly, I believe Dogtopia bears a significant risk here. And the risk is that they'll be putting these improvements in and have to prove themselves capable, accountable, and responsible. If they fail in that duty, they carry the risk of losing this right or this privilege. They lose the risk of the investment they put into it. I'm grateful for this 1-year review, because that in itself gives the community another chance to revisit this again. And I'm grateful that as a conditional use permit process, if they fail as projected, then it will be revoked before that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, what are your questions? Would you like to have staff come back up, or what is your favor here? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I'll be the first to go. So we covered a lot. A noise and odor issue has turned into a attack on personal integrity. on where we get donations from and things like that. And I appreciate what you're saying, Mark, and I thank you for hanging around. Your dad is the guy that introduced me to the zoning attorney, that I got political donations so I could represent the people. So it frustrates me in a public setting that that's brought up. But you can look up campaign finance reports. It's very public. You can find out everything you want to find out about me. I'm an open book. So what we've turned a noise and odor issue where we want to solve a problem so that neighbors can get along with one another is turned into something entirely different. But I'm going to talk about that maybe later offline. Right now, what I want to do is hopefully, as a council, solve the issue of making sure the dogs aren't noisy if we approve this, and making sure that it doesn't smell. It's that simple, and that's what the council's for. So what we did, Kyle, is we talked on the phone to try to get that solved between two people talking one-on-one and then having groups talk to try to get some solutions and some, what do you want to call it? You give and you give. And then we meet in the middle, and then we don't sit here and accuse people of dishonesty and of circumventing the political process, which is, I'm gonna let it go. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Lopez.
Councilmember Stewart, you said it very well. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I mean, this, as I talk with other citizens, and I vet this, as I've said many, many times before, I vet this with a lot of my family, and I talk about some of the issues that we have coming before us. And even though, again, it was mentioned that it's a done deal, I specifically said this is not done until it gets voted on. There are many minds that get changed on this dais as citizens come and present. And as I was talking over family, friends, and coworkers, again, a lot of people were like, you're fighting over dogs? I mean, everybody's got dogs. There's like neighbors, my neighbors' dogs that bark all the time. Why is this a big issue for a company to be able to do it under at a commercial facility? So I, in part, was defending the citizenry here, defending the neighbors, saying, look, there's more to it. I mean, there are property rights, and I've always talked also about your property rights don't override your neighbor's property rights. Business rights don't override neighborhood rights. So we all got to get along together. We don't allow somebody in your neighborhood to build a 30-foot tall or 45-foot tall house unless it's within code. So there's things that we do in order to make sure that everybody's abiding by the same playground, abiding by the same rules. So yeah, I really liked Councilmember Stewart's response to Mr. Sepulveda's comments. I found that also very frustrating, and again, taking it personally, because I ran. I can give you my whole background too, but I'm here to represent the citizenry. I did like putting up the org chart of the citizens, and we all believe, I have 100% belief that everyone on the council here believes that, and every staff member believes that. We talk about budgets prior to coming on here. We all looking for the best interests of the city. Sometimes those interests, when you have two parties, are counter. So we have to weigh the balance. We have to weigh the benefits to both. A business that's looking to add on options for their current customers, the neighbors that may be impacted by that. And I think, in my opinion, that this is a good compromise. There's been a lot of compromise by the business. Setting the one-year limit, and as I mentioned in our meeting, Kyle, what this also does is there could be unintended consequences. There could have been stuff that would have been approved that we would not have thought of that would have impacted the neighbors in another way outside of noise and or smell. So that gives us another bite at a chance at the apple, or however the saying goes, to basically revisit this and say, okay, these are other mediations that need to be done by the business in order to help them continue to thrive. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember McClements.
So when I started digging into this issue, and first and foremost, from an economic development standpoint, I'm very pro-commerce, and mayor and council at large. We're a city that seeks to attract large knowledge-based employers and promote a small business-friendly environment. And why am I so passionate about business? 60 to 70% of the businesses in Chandler are small businesses that employ so many people in this community. I'll just point out, like, I was trying to look for a couple others, but Sally Putnam runs a small business. I think I saw Shay Willis here earlier. She's a realtor. She promotes the community. These small businesses hire a lot of people in this community. And I wouldn't even be surprised if in your community, some of your residents work at Basis or Alamo or I don't know, Blue 32 or the music school or whatnot, or at least in the surrounding area. And so, so that said, though, you can't be small business friendly unless you are small business friendly. But that doesn't mean you give them carte blanche. You still need to hold their feet to the fire and be prudent and fair for the community and the business community at large. And so that said, when this case came about, I met with Kyle. And one of the things that is working that you should be celebrating is we all met with Kyle and other members in the community. We took time out of our busy schedules to make time to learn about your case and figure out what the scenario is and what can be done. And so when I met with Kyle, we discussed the issue, and I will tell you on the surface, at that point, it was an hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the afternoon, 2 hours on Saturday. From a cursory point of view, that didn't sound unreasonable. And by the way, I live next to a school. I chose to live next to a school. I had my house built 17 years ago, almost 17 years ago. And I was okay with that. I chose my neighbor, and I was okay with that. But some families might not like living and hearing the ambient noise of kids during the day. I don't mind that. I think it's a value for whenever I sell my house in the future, there'll be a family with small kids that'll love to go to the school. But so when I was talking to Kyle, what I always want to know is, how can we get to a solution? What's the compromise? And Kyle, I don't want to paraphrase because I'm not good at that, but I know he said, well, we don't get anything out of compromising. And so that point really stuck with me, and I thought about that for a while. Okay, it's fair in this scenario. You let them have dogs, and you don't get anything out of that scenario. But then when I started thinking on a deeper level, they're your neighbors. Just like you don't always choose your neighbor. You're the neighbor that can sell their house and move in and have a barking dog. And what do you do in that scenario? You try to form a compromise. That compromise might be, instead of dog being barking all day, maybe they bark in 3 hours during the day. You didn't get anything out of that, but you did work with your neighbor. And I really think that what boils down is working with your neighbors, and you chose your neighbors as far as having a commercial development next to you. And so, do I think this is prudent? In this scenario with the compromise that the applicants made, I do think it's a scenario that makes sense, that is fair and reasonable. And I want to reiterate, it's a 1-year use permit. So if it's not, and they do not do a good job, then we will hold their feet to the fire in that moment. So those are my thoughts. I don't have anything more.
Okay. Councilmember Wong.
I just want to use this opportunity to make a comment and also trying to explain how I'm going to vote. I did meet with the resident. I did meet with the applicants. Well, as an elected official, we are your representative. So what you believe, what you feel, carry a lot of weight on us and me, of course. So first, I want to say I'm sorry for how you feel or your some bad experience with the city. I want to say I have been here for 3 years, and I have very high remark on our staff, and I also have very high remark on our council. I think the people sitting here, we sometimes disagree with each other, but we do put our resident on the top. And that's how, I believe that's how we got elected in the first place. Of course, there's always space to improve, of course. And please feel free to express how you feel to us. So we know sometimes we may not do very well on certain area, but I can assure you that's not on purpose. So I feel like at the meeting, I also asked the applicants and also the residents, maybe you can sit down together and come up with some kind of compromise and see if there's some kind of win-win solutions. And I I understand you may say the applicants did not speak the truth or something, but according to my observation, the applicants really are sincere. They really try to solve, come up with some kind of solution that the residents would accept. That's the impression I got. And I did see they make some kind of concession already, including the time limit, including the 8 feet high fence. I also checked the location. It looks like I feel there's enough buffer for those noise. Actually, when I went there, I heard the noise from basic schools. I was kind of surprised a school would be there. And when I was on site, the kids' noise is really intense. But when you walk maybe 100 feet away, well, that's very minimum. And dog barking can be very annoying, but from the distance, it doesn't look like it will be that kind of intense. And of course, the permit is revocable, it's 1 year. And if you really feel you still cannot accept it, or you got annoyed or something, you can, the noise is unbearable to you, you can always report. So I would say, why don't we give them a try? And I feel Doctopia is really a good business, at least from what I saw, what I see. So maybe we can give them some kind of trust, some kind of benefit of doubt, or I hope that's appropriate English. So, yeah, and this is not life and death sentence. These things can change. If Doctopia cannot satisfy you, there's always can be changed. But for this moment, what I see is Doctopia is really sincere. They really want to be good neighborhood to you. So maybe give them a chance. Thank you.
Council, any
Thank
other
you.
comments? Are you done, Council Member? Yeah. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief very quickly. Kyle, I had a conversation with you on the phone about this. I have sympathy because I am sensitive to noise, especially barking dogs. I will tell you that during our conversation, I suggested that you seek a win-win solution. I hope that you did that. I know that we've been up here and gone through this sort of thing a number of times, and that is the one thing that does seem to have the most success, where people work together and figure things out. Without the 1-year temporary use permit and without the limited times that have been offered by the company that's putting Dogtopia, I would not support it, but I feel like that they do deserve an opportunity, and I think this one-year use permit is appropriate. And if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move to pass use permit PLH 19-0021, Dogtopia.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember McClymans. Any additional comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I'm not ready to vote on this yet. A couple of things I want to make sure of is, so I get how this all kind of happened. We're talking about the South Chandler neighborhood and the perspective and the grand scheme of things. This is, an hour and a half meeting about noise and odor. In perspective to what's going on in other cities, it's unfortunate. But here's what I want to do, because, and if the council will oblige, I do want to make sure that this noise and this odor issue is taken care of, and make sure that some stipulations are taken care of for the other neighbors in that area. So we still have to solve for this problem, and I don't know that we've effectively done that. Can you talk a little bit more? I don't know if this is the right time to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. The wall is 8 feet, and there's noise pads and all kinds of things like that. Is there any other vegetation that's gonna go into this wall? Can anybody from planning talk about this? Will there be any more trees? Will there be anything else that can help dampen this sound?
City Attorney, are we still in the realm of protocol here?
You do have a motion and a second. You're going back into presentation. It is beyond discussion.
So we can have discussion.
Not totally within the
Okay.
rules of protocol.
Okay.
My apologies, Mayor.
We can have discussion up here, but not presentation is beyond that. So I think what I heard you say, Councilmember Stewart, is that you would look for them to do whatever else is possible in terms of sound mitigation, whether within the wall, plants, et cetera. And we'll be watching.
Kyle, was Kyle still here? Can I do that? Can I?
It's
No?
back to presentation again.
All right. Okay. I just want the sound to be fixed for the dogs with more vegetation and maybe a higher wall. Is there a way we can stip that for this? Maybe just add a few more trees on that backside of that wall and put some more fencing up a little bit higher?
I think there's a process to.
If I can.
Go ahead, City
Mayor,
Manager.
if I may,
City Attorney.
a motion to amend the motion can be made to add those conditions. And if it is seconded, then you vote on the amended motion first and then the underlying motion.
Okay.
I'll make that motion if the applicant would agree to that.
Can you be more clear?
So can we add more vegetation on the backside of the wall for sound attenuation and shade? And can we raise the height of the wall to 9 feet instead of 8? Is that even possible with that type of wall?
Interesting comment. Let me address the vegetation question first through the noise. And I don't want to do something that doesn't have a practical effect. So would you address the presence of vegetation and noise attenuation?
Yeah, my name is Eric Miller-Klein, A3 Acoustics, the gentleman who wrote the noise study. And vegetation doesn't do a good job of absorbing sound, and we've actually already agreed to add additional sound absorptive panels on the inside of the barrier, which will provide another 5% improvement.
Councilmember Stewart, the recommendation from Planning Commission is to add 3 absorption panels on the perimeter wall of the commercial building. What's not in the stipulations today, but what could be added with a recommendation or motion is to add the noise attenuation panels on the interior of the fence enclosure. That would have a greater effect and impact than shrubs.
And can we go to 9 feet if that is it a manufactured wall that you're going to be putting up, or will you be building it?
It's a pre-manufactured wall that comes at 8 feet, and an additional, like the absorptive panels are twice as effective as going just 1 more feet taller because of the height of the dogs comparative to where someone's window is.
Okay.
We don't gain any real advantage by going another foot taller.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor?
So how do I do that? So, coach me.
I'll get back to you, Councilmember.
So Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Stewart, I would make a motion to amend the motion to add a condition that the applicant add sound attenuation to the perimeter walls.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend to add noise attenuation panels to the outside and inside, or the inside of the wall.
Inside of the outside wall.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that stipulation should be added to the agreement.
I'll second that. So there is a new motion. We need to vote on the new motion? Or-
Mayor, that is correct. So you vote on the amendment first, and then depending on the results of the amendment, it will be incorporated to the underlying motion or not, depending on the vote.
Councilmember Wong.
Yes, Kelly, to my knowledge is if a member make an amendment to the original motion, we will need to pass that amendment as our main motion first in order to have a discussion on it, right? And I mean, when I say pass, that doesn't mean we pass the amendment. We pass it as a motion, as the main motion. So we kind of kill the original motion. But if that amendment fail, then we go back to the original motion. Is that correct, right?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Wong, that is correct. So you vote on the amendment. If the amendment succeeds, then you vote on the underlying motion as amended. If the amendment fails, then you vote on the underlying motion not amended.
Okay.
Council?
Mayor, if it's okay to jump in really quick, the
Please.
3 additional conditions that were passed out and included, number 13 did include adding the sound attenuation panels on the inside of the wall. It's clarified that it says on the upper part of the outdoor play fence. And I just want to make sure that as the original motion was made, that it included those 3 additional. And if the goal is to get the sound attenuation panels added on the interior of the fence full height, that condition number 13 that was passed out, that it gets adjusted instead of saying the upper part, that they're just added to the interior, and then we'll take care of making sure they're full height. But
Thank you.
A version of that is included in that 13.
Yeah, let's, and I don't care what we do, just let's try to attenuate the sound as best we can. It seems like that's what we can do, yeah?
So, Kevin, what you're saying is that this was part of the amended motion that was brought also left at our days here, is that correct? With
Mayor,
this?
that's accurate, yep.
Okay.
Mayor?
Hang on one second. So Councilmember Stewart, it might be more appropriate to take I'm trying to find that piece of paper with everything else up here. Here it is, the alternative motion for approval, and to vote for the alternative motion for approval and modify number 13, that would add the attenuation on the entire wall rather than the upper part of the wall, which is, I think, what you have suggested. Is that correct, Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Okay.
Although, can I just step in for a second? We've done it on the upper wall because that's where it's the most effective. It's not as effective below, and it causes additional problems from a maintenance standpoint. So that's why we had done it as a secondary level, just doing it above 6 feet, because the dogs can't touch it, and it's the most effective for high reflections off of the brick.
Yeah. Councilmember Wong. I'm waiting for someone to say, call the question here in a second. But.
Okay. So the question, okay, it looks like Councilmember Stewart's amendment is already included in the original amendment, original motion already. Right?
No, it's those sound attenuation panels are only at the top, and it's one of the things I saw. Why isn't it through the whole wall? I mean, if it's just a plastic wall, the sound could, I just want to attenuate that sound more. So do we put it on the inside of the wall? Is that possible? I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
So now we have a question of order. We have somebody make an amendment, we have somebody second it. We need to decide, are we going to use this amendment as our motion or not first? Then we can start to and if that fail, we go back to original one.
Well,
yeah.
I think that's because we needed to,
City Attorney, please give us some direction here.
Mayor, if I may, you have an amendment to the motion to add more sound attenuation, and as I understand it, to add it completely to the inside the wall, not just in the upper wall. Is that correct?
It is.
So you have that amendment, a motion and a second. So I would suggest taking a vote on that, and then that can go, then we'll go from there.
I think there's a point of clarification. Did we vote on the amended motion? Was that first made, or was it the original? That was Council Member or Vice Mayor.
Mayor, what I would like to propose is that we withdraw our motions and I make a new motion, and I have it right here, and I would be happy to make it. And if you'd like to amend that, you may do that.
Will you make an amendment?
I will withdraw my original motion. Would you, how about your amendment?
Yes.
Are you going to withdraw your amendment?
I will withdraw my amendment if you will add it to your motion.
If it's here,
Deal.
you listen,
Thank
okay?
Vice Mayor.
Alternative motion for approval. Move City Council approve use permit PLH 19-0021 Dogtopia, subject to the conditions as recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission and planning staff, with the exception of condition 5, which is modified to read as, a direct contact phone number for the owner shall be provided to interested neighbors to resolve noise complaints quickly and directly, as well as the following conditions. Any sunshade structures shall match the color theme of the center as approved by the Development Services Department. Number 12, a second staff member will be outside and monitoring outdoor play in the event there are more than 20 dogs outdoors. And 13, the applicant shall install additional sound attenuation measures on the upper part of the outdoor play area as approved by the Development Services Department. That is my motion. You have an amendment. Wait for a second.
Mayor.
I'd like to second that with an amendment. All right?
If you want to second that and then make a motion to amend, you can do that.
I'd like to second that and make a motion to amend.
Okay.
I'd like to amend that so the wall, the sound attenuation is throughout the whole wall, not just the top. Safely for the dogs.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'd like to second the motion to approve with the amendment to include sound attenuation for the entire wall, not safely for the dog, not just the top. Safely for the dogs.
What does safely for the dogs mean, sir?
I don't know. They need to figure that out. The lowest they can go that it's safe. Okay, starting at the top from the lowest, is that the right thing? Is that the right way to say that? We'll just get it right.
So I mean, what we were planning was 6 feet to 8 feet because that's above a height where the dogs can get to it, like the large dogs. And the manufacturer of these products do not want like dogs to be interacting with the product.
Can we put it on the backside?
It's already against the brick. So it's already against the back of the wall. And then so the materials.
I'm talking about the plastic wall that's closest to the homes.
I understand. So what this material is actually doing is it's stopping the bounce of sound energy. It doesn't stop the transmission of sound energy. The actual weight of the fence and the height of the fence is what's doing the sound transmission component of it. The absorptive panels are stopping the bounciness. Like if the dogs were throwing bouncy balls, and so if you put it on the neighbor side, there's no reflected energy hitting that surface. So you're trying to put it on the surface where dog barks are essentially bouncy balls hitting that surface.
Okay, that's included in here.
So, and the point is like there's dogs, and then when they jump up on the fence, they will be encouraged to get down, but none of the dogs are consistently taller than 6 feet. So this material can handle some claw marks, but shouldn't be chewed on.
Okay.
And more importantly, because odor and sanitation is a concern, you don't want at the very base level where pet waste may occur and then gets in there. So that's why we're trying to strategically put it on the upper half, so that way you don't have to worry about pee getting into an absorption panel at base level. So we're trying to be considerate of that concern for the neighbors by putting out the upper half where it's out of reach as far as pet contact, but still has an effect use because it absorbs that noise.
I understand. So this is why we try to figure stuff out before we get here. I'll rescind my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And council, please vote.
I'm sorry. Are we vote on amend motion or? No amendment. No, okay, good. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Our next item is item number 64. The amending of a citywide fee schedule relating to the city manager department, transportation policy division, and public works and utilities department, solid waste division, which will be effective January 1st, 2020. And we have a presentation from Matthew Dunbar. Let's wait about 30 seconds, Matthew, and give people a chance to exit.
I am Mayor. Mayor and Council, tonight the second action item before you is Resolution 5300, amending the citywide fee schedule. Every year through the budget process, we typically review fees and will recommend or propose fee changes. Once in a while, a mid-year fee change is needed. And tonight we are bringing forward a mid-year fee change which followed our City Code 2-17, the establishment and modification of fees and rates. Based on 2-17, we are to post any proposed fees on the city's website for 60 days or longer, and those fees have been posted in detail since October 11th, 2019. We have received no comments from citizens regarding those fee changes. A notice of intention to change fees is published in the newspaper and on social media. And then it's also set as an action item should there be any concerns that need to be discussed at a council meeting in public. So with the presentation. For some reason, I do have it on, but I'm going to have Matt turn the slide for me. Thank you, Matt. I'm on the third one. Fee characteristics, typically the city will look at assessing or we have a citywide fee schedule, so every fee that we charge in the city that is not set by or guided by state statute is listed in our citywide fee schedule. So it's very easy for a citizen to look up all the fees that we do assess for different services. Our fees are typically assessed for the use of facilities or services that are benefiting specific groups. Also, fees reflect, majority of them reflect a recovery of cost to provide a service unless market demands a lower rate. And the authority to charge a fee should exist in our city code, and the amounts and specifics set by resolution like we are doing this evening. Typically, the authority exists, and then through the citywide fee schedule and an action item like this, the actual amounts and specifics around those fees are discussed and recommended to council. So the department's proposing fee updates mid-year is the Transportation Policy Division regarding the scooter fees and that have been discussed over a couple months now, as well as Public Works and Utilities Department Solid Waste Division with the monthly solid waste disposal fee. The first group of fees is the Transportation Policy Division fees. Monday night, there was a discussion regarding the shared mobility program, and tonight, number 14, Resolution 5337 that was on the consent agenda was approved authorizing the shared mobility program. These are the fees that are being recommended for approval for a owner of a shared mobility or a scooter or electric bicycle business that wants to do business in Chandler. It is important to note that we do want to make sure that we aren't assessing fees that we want to make sure that we're assessing fees that have a direct correlation to public health and safety. And we believe that the shared mobility program proposed fees reflect the desire to regulate business activity so that it does have a direct correlation to that public health and safety. The fees listed are the application fee, $3,000 one time, shared mobility monthly use fee at 10 cents per ride paid monthly, the monthly late or the shared mobility late monthly use fee for $50 should they pay after the term of the contract, and the shared mobility violation fee as our Jason Crampton, who is in charge of the program, discussed on Monday evening regarding the different violations. Okay. Secondly, proposed this
Mayor?
evening. Yes, sir.
Before you leave that, question to the city attorney. I mean, we have to advertise this for 60 days, but we just approved that whole contract tonight. So I guess, did we already advertise these already without having approval on a contract, on a city council meeting?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Orlando, yes, we advertise these for 60 days, and this is our normal procedure. They can't go into effect until the council votes, and if the council voted no, they wouldn't go into effect, even though they were advertised.
So even-
It is the statutory requirement that we proceed with this process.
Yeah, I understand statutory requirement. I get that. Thank you. I appreciate that clarifying. But my point is, we just approved, now wastewater, solid waste, we've had those program in effect for years. But we just voted on this tonight. Are we going to, I mean, we just approved this. Do we have to wait 60 days for this now? Because we just approved it tonight.
Mayor, Councilmember Orlando, no. The only requirement from the statute is that we post it 60 days before the council takes action, but then it can go into effect at the time the council votes, or at a time that's included in the motion.
Okay, just want to make sure we don't have nobody walk up here in a couple of weeks from now and say, why do I give a $3,000? It was legally posted, but we're good.
We're
Okay,
good.
thank you.
So City Attorney, correct me if what I heard you, it's a 60-day period that's essential, where council votes in the midst, whether if we voted no, the 60 days would have been null and void, but it's the 60-day period is important and a council vote is important, but it's not necessarily important that the council vote at the beginning or at some time. Is that right?
Actually, Mayor, if I may, the statute requires that the fees be posted for 60 days before the council votes on them.
Okay.
So
very good.
we have to vote at the end of the 60 days.
All right, thank you. Proceed.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. The next fees that are proposed this evening is from the Public Works and Utilities Department, Solid Waste Division. The fee being proposed is an increase to the monthly solid waste disposal fee that is paid by our covered residences in the city of Chandler. The current fee is $16.93 a month. With a 6% increase, it would go to $17.95. This is an important increase for us due to the fact that we do operate our solid waste service through a contract, and that we don't own the trucks, we don't own the people. So when the contract increases their fee, we do need to make sure that we have the ability to pay that contract. Along with the other part of the service provided is processing recycling materials, and there has been a significant increase in the cost of recycling as well. So this is important to sustain the program. This is an enterprise fund, so the fees collected off of this service are only used to support the solid waste and recycling programs in the city of Chandler and nothing else. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions?
Mayor, real quick.
Councilmember Orlando.
So this fee is just for the pickup of the trash and the recycling. There's no other additional programs we're putting in place, i.e. education for recycling, any of that aspect will come out of these fees, or is that something separate?
No, through the mayor, Councilmember Orlando, that's an excellent point. There's a lot of programs around solid waste and recycling that are out there for our residents. That is something that Public Works and Utilities takes a lot of pride in. We have the transfer station as well that's part of the program, that residences that live in Chandler can take any of their waste to, hazardous materials. So there's various other services that also are part of the solid waste and recycling. It falls under solid waste.
Okay, so these fees increase goes towards those programs you just mentioned?
Those as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Council, no more discussion. I believe a vote is in order. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember McClymons.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 5300, item number 64 on tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lopez. No additional comments. Council, please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda tonight is we have two unscheduled public appearances. To those who are coming up, I'll ask you to state your name and address. We cannot engage you since this is not on our agenda, but you have 3 minutes to share your concerns or thoughts. First is Victor Hardy. you could
Good
state your
evening.
name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm Director Fury, and I'm here to discuss the Avengers Initiative. I'm sorry. Wrong speech. I'm sorry. Victor Hardy, 2220 East Spruce Drive, Chandler, Arizona, 85286. And I'm here to discuss, not discuss, but to talk with you just for a moment about this season of giving. As Director of For Our City Chandler, I want to thank all those whom have already given and those who are in the process of giving at this time of the year. As everyone knows, this is the time in which we look forward to making sure that everybody has joy and everybody has the things that they need during the season. But also, I want to remind those that this is a situation that goes on every year, all through the year, not just during Christmas season. And I also want to remind those who have a problem with scammers and don't know where their money is going, they can always go through For Our City Chandler, and you can find our website. If you want to see what your dollars are doing, you can do that by looking at those 501c3s and other companies that are doing the right thing by making sure that those whom are without get. And I know, Mayor, that you know better than anyone else the things that go on here in Chandler and that you support and this council supports. We thank you for what you are doing for us. I thank Neighborhood Services and Diversity, all those who help in hand doing the work of angels. And that is my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Next, Jenny Given, if you'd please give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Given. I live at 91 West Cardinal Way in Chandler, Arizona. I'm introducing myself as a representative of the Arizona Sustainability Alliance. The Arizona Sustainability Alliance is a nonprofit volunteer organization that empowers Arizona citizens to work together towards a more verdant, equitable, and sustainable community. Some of our projects include Adopt a Park, planting trees, conserving water resources, promoting renewable energy, and supporting sustainable foodways, especially for those people in need. And of course, education for those and other environmental best practices. So I wanted to bring to your attention that we are an organization, a local organization, and that we are currently selecting projects for 2020 and beyond, and we'd be very happy to collaborate with the City of Chandler. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is current events and announcements. I'd like to start. So last week we had our 63rd annual tumbleweed tree lighting and parade. It was a great event despite the rain. We had nearly 60 floats float down Arizona Avenue, and so a great crowd lined up along the route as well. The tumbleweed tree is now lit every night until January 12th, so we hope that you will come down and enjoy the festivities in our downtown. And if you did miss Santa, he will be downtown the next 2 Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can visit our city's website for more information on the same. And while you're down there, remember to shop local. Spending local really counts big time in terms of the amount of the money that you spend that stays in our local community. Do want to talk, I suppose, following up on Victor Hardy's comments, as we are all getting ready for the holidays. I would like to remind each and every one of you, this is a great season to give back. There's a number of nonprofits in our community that are serving our community, looking for donations, hosting events that you can also serve beyond your giving. Our city council, For Our City Chandler's website has a great list of nonprofits listed. I hope you do your own research and find out how you can make the holidays just a little bit better for someone else in need. Then I'd like to give a brief wrap up just of this year. This will be our last city council meeting of the year. It's been a remarkable year for Chandler. We've been recognized as one of the safest cities, the top digital cities, one of the best places to buy a home and raise a family, and we've welcomed several new businesses to the community, providing more opportunities for our residents. In fact, just recently, if not just today, Smart Assets named Chandler the 14th most livable city in the United States. And this is based upon our low crime rates, our low unemployment rate, the city's walkability, and housing costs compared to income. So congratulations to our great staff and all who work hard that made that possible. I've truly enjoyed my first year as mayor, and I look forward to continuing the great work that we are all doing together. I do hope that you have a wonderful and safe Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo those sentiments. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. But I also want to say go Wolves. Big state championship this weekend. Great job, great job, team and coach. Chairman.
4P. Stuart is under the weather tonight, and so he handed off his announcement. So I'm going to take the baton. Thank you. Have you participated in the hashtag Love Chandler Challenge? The city of Chandler introduced a monthly challenge to our community to show our love of Chandler. Each month there'll be a new challenge. It'll be issued, and those who participate in it can win a City of Chandler shirt that's created by State 48. To participate this month, snap a photo of yourself giving a new keyword unwrapped toy to either the police department toy drive or the fire department toy drive. And then once you take the photo, add it to the comment section of the hashtag Love Chandler challenge post on either Facebook or Instagram. Except for, I'm not sure, you can't add a picture to a comment on Instagram, so we don't want to rework that part. But this month's challenge ends Sunday. And other than that, my wife and I and some other council members, I believe, are going to get in the holiday spirit this Saturday during the Sippin' Santa's pub crawl. It's a self-guided crawl that'll take place throughout downtown Chandler, beginning at 1 p.m. I think it ends at 5. Over 18 restaurants and bars are participating, and we encourage you to come decked out in your best Santa costume. Tickets are $20 at the door, and registration will be held at San Marcos. See you Saturday. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly, something from Parks and Recreation, Empowered Living. Chandler Parks and Recreation is partnering with other like-minded organizations to create resources that help our 50-plus community build the social connections they need to thrive. Starting this month, Chandler Recreation will begin offering Tela Vida's Empowered Living classes. Empowered Living are a virtual body and brain wellness class where participants exercise to upbeat music from the past and play brain games to help stimulate the mind. For a limited time, the community will be able to join Empowered Living series for free and from anywhere. For more information, visit telavita.com. And I will say, please look out for all your local charities and food banks. Make a donation. They need your help all year round. Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you all for being here so late and with all those happy smiles out there I can see. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
So this is our last regular council meeting for the year. I also want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I do have one announcement. In January 18, we will have 25th annual multiple cultural festival. It will combine with international films, cultural performance, food, and fun for the family. So you can bring your kids. And it will be on Saturday, January 18 at Downtown Stage. The Chandler Diversity Office is currently seeking sponsors and vendors to participate. You can download the application form online. Please check the screen. Applications are due at 5 p.m. Friday, December 20th. So don't miss it, and I'll see you in January. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. My voice is a little raspy. Councilmember Stewart's bug is spreading on the dais. First I want to announce the Chandler National Film Festival is coming back. It's the 4th annual event. with the city's 25th annual Multicultural Festival that Councilman Wong just mentioned. That will be going on. The Chandler International Film Festival will be running from January 17th to the 20th. The festival will also showcase 120 films this year, it's about 20 more than last year. It's submitted from all over the world, from 6 different continents and 55 different countries. This 4-day festival will also include special world premiere shows, a filmmaking workshop, discussion panels, and nightly after parties and more. So the Chandler International Film Festival is really close to my heart, and I hope to see Nick Fury, or also known as Victor Hardy, on the screen again. This continues to create opportunities for film enthusiasts in our local community and also casual fans like myself. You can go to the website at chandlerfilmfestival.com for tickets and to learn more information. I'd also like to say Merry Christmas to the council, to the staff, to our citizens out there. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Not only with the nonprofits and giving back to the community, give back to yourself. Spend some time with your family. Do something you enjoy. Enjoy life, because the busy, busy year that we just finished is going to continue into next year anyway. So try to recuperate. Thanks.
Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, other than happy holiday to all of you and everyone out there, nothing tonight.
All right. City Manager.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
All right. Council, we will be resuming a study session, so we'll be meeting in the council conference room, and that concludes this meeting.